I have tried 4 times to make this video. I don't know what's going on. Three of those times, I completely lost my train of thought, and I couldn't even, my brain wasn't functioning. And then the 4th one, my battery ran out right when I was going fine. So let's see if we can get through this in a more limited way and see what I can do with this. All right. To free range or not to free range? Oh Lordy, here we go again. Okay. There's some, mainly the disadvantage to free ranging is that your birds are more accessible to predators. Yes, they are. There's always a risk in free ranging. Now, free ranging doesn't mean you let them out of the pen and you don't have any other barriers and they just go anywhere they want to and they can go down the street or whatever. I really only had that for a very brief period of time. Right away we realized we had to put up a perimeter fence on the main property because my chickens, I had one chicken that she would find a gap in a fence and she would go no matter what. I had a 20-foot gap, had the entire thing done, and I had a 20-foot gap and she found that gap. She didn't get eaten. She almost did though. Neighbor's dog almost got her. But so we've had the perimeter of the property fenced for a long time, and each coop that we had, they wouldn't have the barn we do now, each coop that we had its own little pop door, you know, the door that they opened to go out, and each group got to free range on a rotating basis. Now they still free range on a rotating basis, but they don't get to stay outside all day long like my originals did. They got to stay outside all day long, but they also got to get out of their pen. From the very first, I guess by the time the first chickens got to be about 12 weeks old, we let them free range. And that meant they out of the pen, they can go anywhere on the 2¼ acres that they wanted to. And some of them went far away and some of them didn't. It was a little harder to try to, usually they came back in when I shook the scratch jar. I had a jar, put scratch in, shake it, and they come running, you know, chicken cocaine. But at a certain point, and they'd walk around my deck here in the house and everything, but at a certain point we decided to put another barrier up so they couldn't come all the way to the house, and it was limiting their space. They still have a good bit of space. They probably have 3/4 of an acre to, or not maybe not 3/4, about half an acre to free range on. I think that's considered free range. They're not stuck inside a pen. So that's the free range now, and each group gets to go out by themselves for 2 to 3 hours apiece on any day that the weather's suitable, and they all free range. I have free range my birds since I had them, and I've never once had a predator loss. I never had a predator loss out here ever. I credit the roosters, the good roosters I've had. Plus, I live in the woods. They have a lot of cover. Okay. They can get under something. And in places where I didn't have cover, I planted evergreen trees like Leyland cypress or Carolina sapphire cypress, or, you know, something that's Holly's planted evergreens. So they have cover, and they have roosters who always watch out for them. Is there a risk to letting them free range even on a limited basis outside in a less confined space than just the barn pen? Yes, there's always a risk. This area has every predator known to man except fishers. We don't have the fishers that they do. Some people call them fisher cats, but it's just a fisher. It's a huge weasel. It's a giant weasel. We don't have that here. Those are mostly up north. But we've got everything else. We've got foxes and coyotes and mountain lions, bears. I don't have that much danger from a bear, unless a bear just decides to tear your coop apart, and he's not tearing apart my metal barn probably. Most bears wouldn't take that kind of, they wouldn't go to that much trouble to get a little chicken. So we have all these predators, and we've got, you know, I guess we have weasels, we got foxes, you know, we've got roaming domestic dogs. The worst predator are roaming domestic dogs and irresponsible dog owners. To me, that's the worst predator, because they're not killing your chickens to eat. They're killing your chickens for sport, and that makes it so much worse. Of course, we have hawks, you know, overhead predators, the hawks. We have buzzards, we have red and black-headed buzzards, and one of them will actually hunt things, the other one will not. I don't remember which is which. We have both of those here in the mountains. And cats, but domestic cats are not usually a big deal. We've got bobcats. We have bobcats for sure. I had them on game camera. Bobcats, mountain lions, all that kind of stuff. So we've got every predator known to man except a fisher. There's even red wolves in the mountains. So we even have that. But never a predator loss. And, it's just the odds. We've just beaten the odds for all these years, and our number may come up. That can happen whether or not they're in a pen. So free range has a lot of advantages. Now, if somebody said, so I don't like fighting roosters, it's like, well, my roosters don't fight with each other because they're free ranging. They fuss with each other because they're in the same pen. They're competing for the same girls. That's why my roosters fuss with each other. And as long as Nathaniel doesn't fight back, he's probably going to fight. They have a fine relationship, Angus and Nathaniel. Angus is the boss. Nathaniel does what he says, and that's it. And if he turns around to fight, we're going to have some bloodshed probably. But so far, he hasn't. So the roosters fighting has nothing to do with whether they free range or not. It has to do with, do you want a pen with one rooster and however many hens you put with him, and that's it, or do you want a spare without having to have a separate pen for him? I kept Nathaniel because I have a spare. He's my spare. If something happens to if something happens to either one of those roosters, I have another rooster. Now, if they started fighting too much, I would separate them and maybe sell one. So, the roosters fighting is not a free range issue. Now, let me tell you, a disadvantage to penning up your birds. If you pen the bird 24/7, I don't care how big your pen is, and it's not, you have to provide all their nutrition. I think a disadvantage to free ranging is, first, they get a lot of exercise. They expend a lot of excess energy, especially these young males. They run everywhere, and they have plenty of ways to expend energy, whether it's fighting or just running around. And they get direct sunshine and fresh air. And sometimes in a pen, they're not going to get direct sun. And they're not going to get, well, they may get fresh air, but they're not going to get a lot of sunshine because they can't go to where the sunshine spot is and lay in it for sunbathing. So there's that. But I think there's more advantages, besides the predator issue, there's more advantages to free ranging. As long as you have some forage on your lot, as long as you're not letting them free range in a dirt lot and there's nothing there to eat. They can dust bathe, obviously, but there's no nutritional advantage for them going out there. They may catch a bug here and there too, but with no foliage, there's not going to be a lot of bugs. You know what I mean? So they'll eat worms and mice and snakes and all that. Even if they don't free range, if they at least have a pen, if something comes to their pen, they're liable to get it. But they can't get out to get it wherever those things are. So let me tell you the advantages of free ranging. Now, it's going to be up to you whether you decide that's a risk that you can take. I've taken it for over 20 years, and I've never had a predator loss. And that's just, that's kind of, we've beaten the odds really well. It may happen someday, it may happen today. We just don't know. But one advantage to free ranging, if you have grass, pasture, or whatever, is that they get a lot of green forage, which is healthier than just commercial chicken feed. And they also eat some plants that are natural wormers that keep their worm loads down, so you don't have to chemically treat them every time. Not all the time. I do it about once a year. I'll do all my groups once a year, maybe twice if I see a worm or something in some poop. Out on range, they have more access to animal protein, to bugs and snakes and mice out on range, or whatever they can find to eat. And so there's that. But I think the big thing is fresh air, sunshine, working off excess energy, especially if these young males or even the hens are fighting. And I think that helps a great deal. They get nutritious natural food out on range. And the disadvantages, you've got to go look for them if they don't come back when you call them, which actually the Omega Rocks are now coming back when I call them. Both the boys and all the girls are coming back. And they come in, and I can put them back in their own pen inside the barn and let somebody else out. hang on. Sorry. One disadvantage is you gotta go make sure they all get home. And if you've got more than, it's like the dirty dozen plus one, I got 13 of those to count right now. I gotta be sure all 13 came back. It's not some girl's not out there to the fence line, dust bathing and oblivious to she's all by herself. So there's that disadvantage. It takes a little time to go get them if they don't automatically come back when you call them. And most of mine do. Most. We train them to do that. So I don't want to have to provide even the commercial feed. You know, if it's cheaper if they can get some of their own feed out on range. It's cheaper on you. They don't eat as much of your commercial feed. So, and I just think there's a lot of advantage to free ranging, as long as you have some forage out there for them that they've got places to hide if something comes at them from overhead or from the ground, and they enjoy their life better. I think it's a healthier life for them, as long as they don't get killed by some predator. That's true. Like I said, you can mitigate the risk by having overhead cover for them so they can dive under things. And like the A-frame I just put out there in the pen. Remember that big old A-frame that was made from double doors for my crawl space? They've got some shelter from hawks overhead. And so anyway, it's really up to you. Somebody said I have a moral responsibility to my stock, and a predator can decimate some really good stock, and that is true. But that doesn't mean that free ranging is going to be your main problem. If you've got predators looking for a way in, they'll find a way in. If you have dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's in your predator proofing on your coop and run. So that has nothing to do with free ranging. Like I said, I've seen hawks dive on my birds before. I've seen the hawk make a dive, and only once has one got a hold of a bird, and that was Dove in the Dirty Dozen group. And that was last summer, I think it was. So only once has one bird almost bit the dust with a predator. It was an inexperienced hawk. He let her go. She was screaming. I came out there as soon as he saw me. He took off. So it can happen. Now she could have got loose probably because all he had was her feathers. She could have probably pulled loose maybe, but she was a little bitty bird. She's a little bitty bantam girl. So all these things you just need to decide what you want to take the risk to do. And even if you only let them out to free range one time a week, you don't have to do it every day. I do it every day that I can, except on murky, wet days or very, very frigid days. It's a matter of personal preference, and there are disadvantages and advantages to both ways. So that's it. Have a good day and decide what you want to do with your flocks. Tell me what you do with your flocks, and if you've had a lot of predator loss. Bye, y'all. Have a good day.